Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our webinar. Today, we'll be talking about e-learning from investment to implementation. And we may be wondering why we are talking about investment to implementation on this webinar. It is basically because at some point, our panelists have brought e-learning solution to a university near you. And our objective today is to be able to create a platform where we can ask some critical questions about the state of education in the country, drilling down to the tertiary institutions. Now, we will elaborate on the challenges being faced across the education sector in Nigeria and how we can collectively create sustainability in the long haul. With me today, we have the CEO of Oasis Education, Professor Abiola Awoshika. She has pioneered e-learning startups and is a management and higher education consultant, helping colleges and universities in emerging markets leverage their programs using adaptive technologies. Professor Abiola Awoshika has been active on the e-learning circuit both in Nigeria and abroad for over 20 years, both as a teacher and as an implementer. So ladies and gentlemen, Professor Abiola Awoshika. Next on our panelist is Mr. Bumi Akinyemiju. Bumi is the CEO of Venture Garden Group, arguably one of the largest fintech investment companies in Africa. Bumi sits at the helm of leadership at Venture Garden Group, which has dedicated its resources to transforming Africa through technology and have successfully led several impactful change projects through strategic, public, and private partnership. Bumi is a serial entrepreneur, technology innovator, and investor, with vast experience investing in various tech startups, including education technology. Our next panelist is Mr. Babatunde Makun, popularly known as Timac. And Timac is a business sustainability expert with over 20 years work experience across different sectors and countries. With almost 10 years ahead on an hands-on experience in academic and e-learning space, he is an experienced voice in tech and education. A fellow of ICANN and other professional bodies, he is the principal consultant of T-Consult and a business sustainability focused firm. We have Professor Bose Aworiwa. Professor Bose Aworiwa has 20 years experience teaching instructional technology before retiring and relocating to Nigeria. In Nigeria, she is the CEO and Chief Consultant for Gloria Domini Academic Consultants, an organization providing ODL e-learning services to Nigerian higher educational institutes. Professor Aworiwa specializes in e-learning, instructional design, program planning, evaluation, and learning and leadership in ODL. Finally, we have Mr. Deji Ojo. He is a solution architect and has worked as a solution developer and engineering lead on several education management solutions, such as learning management system for UIDLC, school management portals for open universities and several higher institutions of learning in Nigeria. He was also involved in the nationwide JAMB CBT for 3 consecutive years. More recently, he has been leading engineering teams in development of fintech platforms across the country. And finally, I am Temitope Takuro, currently the lead consultant with IdeaCove, and we will be leading this conversation this afternoon. So welcome again, and welcome everybody to this platform. So since we have a lot to cover, I will be calling first on Mr. Deji, and we'll be saying, okay, from deployment of e-learning technologies, from an architectural perspective, how has the journey been? And one of the reasons why we're talking about this is because right now everybody's at home, and we discover that a lot of things are on autopilot. People are doing as it is. But from what we have seen so far, where are we on e-learning technologies, on architecture? How has the design been? So please, Deji, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Temitope, and good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having me here. So I will go straight to the point. I have only 5 minutes. I will answer your question briefly before I proceed to the presentation that I prepared. How has the journey been? Well, we Looking at it from the point of view of technology, it's not been smooth, considering that the essential infrastructure that is required to power e-learning is at best epileptic in Nigeria. We're talking about electricity, we are talking about internet. The quality of our internet is still not totally there, so and it's a little bit expensive for everyday Nigerians, and electricity is a little bit unreliable. So when you look at it from the point of view of Nigeria, e-learning is still has a long way to go. We need to address the infrastructure problem itself before we can make optimal use of e-learning as it is being used elsewhere in the world. Having said that, I will proceed to go to my presentation. All right, looks like my ability to share the screen is disabled, so I will go over the presentation for now. Generally, learning management systems can be categorized into several categories. And on that, we have the general purpose learning management platforms. So these general purpose platforms aggregate an array of tools and infrastructure to be able to provide a full-fledged learning portal. So things like authoring, course authoring, assessment, student administration, fees management. This is what general purpose learning management platforms provides. And then we have learning content management systems. So these systems deal majorly with just authoring and editing of course materials and the delivery of this same course content over hypermedia of this hypermedia course content and their associated metadata. Then the third category of learning management system is collaborative learning support. So this provides both synchronous and asynchronous tools to facilitate team building and learners group management. And we have test authoring systems. These are specialized for creation of quiz, exams, and then as grading of these quizzes and the delivery either online or through one-on-one interactions. Then we also have people management systems. These are targeted at managing the students and the fees, and we have virtual classrooms. So virtual classroom provide virtual environments for live interactions and engagements between users and students. So when we are talking about learning management system, it's important to identify the audience and to identify the purpose, and then determine which category of these LMS implementations is suitable for the audience and for the purpose. So a lot of checklists needs to be considered to decide on which of this approach that needs to be followed. But regardless of which particular flavor of LMS we decide to go with, there are major features that are common to almost all of these learning platforms. We have the course management tools, which provides tools for course creation, course management, assessment, communications, and we have the class management tools. We have the communication tools, which provide synchronous and asynchronous communication between participants and between students and instructors on the learning platform. And we have the student tools. These facilitate the design and authoring of quizzes, tests, and we have the content management system, which manages the data and metadata associated with these courses, with the lecturers and the students that are participating in these courses. And we have the assessment tools, and we have the school management tools. Now, talking about architecture proper, if we consider the complexity of an average learning system and the depth of the domains involved, we also need to take into consideration the desired functionalities of a learning management platform that are varied and extensive. If we look at this, it's a big challenge for any tech company anywhere in the world, and in particular in Nigeria and Africa, to implement a full-fledged learning management system that will meet the needs of our highly enlightened and capable instructors from the higher institutions as we have it in Nigeria today. So that has been the challenge. Most of the software, most of the LMS platforms that have been built in-house in Nigeria provided to these higher institutions have not met the expectations of the educators in these institutions, and we've not been able to bridge that gap sufficiently enough to provide what they know they need and what they've used on other platforms when they are outside of the country. Many of these lecturers also do sabbatical. They've lectured in the Western world. Many of them have done second degree, PhD using learning management system. Many of them have degree in learning content management and online management systems. So when we build these platforms, it doesn't really meet their expectation. And that requires us to have a change of approach in the way we go about implementing, which then means that we need to go about making use of components-based architecture. Many of the functionality that are required in LMS are available already in the market, either as open source or commercially available components. So the design that we use in our LMS system needs to be able to incorporate these components and prevent the need for us as a software or LMS service provider within the country to attempt to reinvent the wheel or to build the platform from scratch. Instead, we should look at aggregating these components and producing something that meets the requirements of our institutions and of our educators. I would love to share my screen so that I can show the diagrams that I have here that explain this. But unfortunately, I still can't do that for now, and I'm about running out of time. But if we look at this, the best approach is to break this down into like 4 layers. We have the LMS specific functionalities layer, and we have the general application layer. In the LMS specific layer, for example, we want to look at creating user management, course authoring, course management, assessment management, courseware delivery, and the help desk. We want to create these individual modules of a learning management system as separate standalone components that can make use of a middleware system that consists of storage, calendar management system, communication management system, metadata management system. So the major functionalities or features of an LMS like course management, course authoring, calendar system, searching, communications, forums, and so on, they can be implemented as standalone components. And each of these components can be composed of already available products from the market. For example, instead of building a whiteboard or video conferencing from scratch into your LMS, instead you can provide integrations into the most popular webinar platforms or whiteboard platforms like GoToMeeting, like a WebEx, like a Zoom. So if you provide this, if you provide your software with the capability to be able to integrate into these platforms, then the school has the option, the educational institutions then have the option to use their existing subscriptions or to subscribe into these platforms and then merely configure it on your LMS platform such that they can take advantage of this. With another challenge has been the issue that many of these our students, they do not have the devices and they cannot many of them cannot afford the data subscription that is required for them to be able to participate fully online. And as a result of this, there is also the demand that these materials need to be available offline. So and this has not been fully met by most of the local platform providers of learning management systems in Nigeria. the quality is not there yet. I will round this up by looking at what are the key checklists that should be considered by software houses, LMS platform providers that are looking at providing learning management solutions within the country. And starting with this, is the most important thing is to identify the audience. Is this for a corporate entity or for an higher institution, or is it targeted at high schools? Then the important features that need to be considered. Out of the important features, the most important is ease of use. You do not need to tell anybody how to use Facebook or how to use WhatsApp. The LMS platform that is being provided needs to be that simple. Unfortunately, we've not been able to achieve that level of simplicity in our UI and in our course delivery, but that is the most important. And then we need to look at compatibility with a standard like a SCORM or XAPI, which used to be formerly known as XAPI. We also need to be sure that the platform can integrate into the school platform, into SSO providers like Active Directory and Google for authentication. And it should provide webhooks for course completion, so that when the course is completed or something happened on the school portal, which is not part of the LMS, notification can be sent to the LMS platform, and the LMS platform can capture these notifications. It should provide for webinars integration, which has been mentioned before, and we should look at course design. The course design needs to be easy for lecturers. They do not need to go and learn another technology or another platform in order for them to be able to author courses, which emphasize the need for us to conform to to conform to existing standard and make this extremely simple. So collaboration, the platform needs to provide for real-time collaboration, such as the discussion forums and direct messaging between the students and the tutors. And then the content management, there is, this cannot be emphasized, there is need to allow the school to be able to reuse existing materials, either in form of documents, text, or videos. They need to be able to come to the platform and be able to create a course from existing materials, and they need to be able to export this course material into a SCORM or XAPI compatible standard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for your presentation. All right, so we'll take, so please send your questions. You can direct your questions to me. So we'll take the questions after all the panelists have presented the topics. Thank you.
Okay. So this is about implications for the Nigerian education sector. And I actually mentioned that nobody expected COVID-19, and it was suddenly upon us. And if it's nothing else, it is a people crisis. We see economic, we see health, we see hunger, poverty, all of these. But all in all, it is a people crisis, and we have to treat it as such. Now, if not for technology, we wouldn't know what to do this past few months. And even as COVID-19 brings the chaos that it did, it also brought with it, benefits like creativity and efficiencies. And I'm sure a lot of people didn't know exactly what, how efficient they could be if they weren't going to work in a particular building. So this has been good for everyone around the world. Now, I know that eventually human capital development will benefit through access to quality education. And that is a plus for this pandemic. Now, the digital revolution is dynamic, it's different from country to country. So we ask, what is in it for Nigeria? Well, it means we can use technology infrastructure to upskill our teachers, to upskill our students and our graduates. We can equip critical agencies for increased efficiencies, new ways of doing things, to move us to the fourth industrial revolution. Otherwise, we're going to miss this one again. So we need to be ready. Now, we also need to find creative ways of funding, because it's, when you propose a plan to a school or university, they're telling you, okay, where will we find the money to do this? And so I'm hoping that some of my panelists will be able to help us address that question. So what must we do? We must ensure that through whatever this pandemic brings to us, we must all prosper through it. And so we have to create the right environment for development, the right environment for techpreneurs and innovators. We have to put aggressive policies, progressive policies around this development. We have to plan for inclusion, people in the special education sector, people with disabilities, low-income schools, vocation and technical education, internally displaced people. These are groups that matter to us, and so we need to find solutions that embraces all of us, and then we have to execute with precision. There are opportunities for us to build something for posterity. 65% of Africa's population are between the ages of 18 and 25. And so that is a huge number that if we leave them behind, then posterity will not judge us well. So we need to do something for that sector. We have to increase sector funding. We have to increase sector funding, not just for health, but for the education sector, because that is what leads to economic development. The NUC executive secretary gave us some figures a few months back that only 1% of our population are in higher institutions. So even if we put all of them into engineering, or we put all of them into medicine, or even as teachers, they're not enough. So we need to increase access for all the sectors. Infrastructural development, we have like 92 million internet users in Nigeria, and still some are left behind. So we need to, and even the 92 million is counting, if you have access at work, you are the same person that has access at home. So there's some double counting there. So we're not yet developed in terms of internet infrastructure. So we need to put money in bandwidth, even in devices that our students, phones, can we create phones that will allow our children, even in the low income schools, to still have school. We've got to liberate our vocational and technical education sector. I thought at the beginning of this pandemic that when we have the next one, God forbid, but we know that's going to happen. When we have the next one, there will be robots, that will be waiting on all the people in isolation, so that, our frontline workers would not be directly exposed. Well, hello, Botswana is already doing that. So we have no excuse at all. And then we've got to liberate our teachers, our educators. We have to put them on the pedestal that they are, where they belong. I see teachers in my school every day, do extraordinary things so that students can learn. We have to acknowledge them. So, ladies and gentlemen, digital education is a must for this giant nation. Our children are ready for it. Our teachers must be prepared for it. Our financial institutions and investors must invest in it. Our techpreneurs must innovate for it. And our government must put e-friendly policies behind it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you very much, Prof. All right. So, well, I put my questions away after we're done with the panel. All right, so I'm moving on to Professor Aworuwa. Professor Oriwai, please, are you there? She's not. Okay. While we're waiting for her, we'll move on to Timac. So Timac will be taking us through e-learning technologies. Hello, Timac, are you there? Okay, yeah, I can see you. All right.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, thank you, sir. So leveraging technologies in the education sector. And over to you, Timac.
So good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining us. I'll just take a few minutes to run through this content, but really, I'm leveraging on what Professor Oshika and Deji said earlier, which is the fact that, but for technology, we probably will be dead in the waters. But I'd like to start from this slant. And if you look at the picture on your screen, is the jaw of a very big dinosaur. But that species is now extinct. And Charles Darwin said earlier that it is not the strongest, nor the most intelligent that will survive. It is the most responsive. So as we are dealing with COVID, particularly as it affects the educational sector, it is necessary that all the players, the investors, the owners, the teachers, the students, the parents, everybody get ready for this, because if we don't, we may get extinct, okay? And so what do we find in a COVID world? We can't say this enough. COVID has changed our world. I've learned never to say never, but we are not likely ever to get back to where we are. And if that is going to happen, that journey is going to be long. That journey is going to be arduous. In fact, when you look at the journey that we are faced with, and you see how we are preparing for it, it seems to me as if most people do not understand that we are not just going to wake up one day and you will hear that government has said no more curfew, flights can resume, students can resume, and then voila, everything will just become back to normal. No, that is not how it's going to be. And I'd like to take just 10 seconds to drive this point home, because even though we talk about the fact that it has changed, the question is, do you really believe this? And how do you know if you really believe it? That's the next question. If you really believe it, what would you be doing now? What should you be doing now? Whatever your role is in that space. Because the obvious action, everybody is trying to just wait for government. Let's see when they will release the lockdown. And then, in a sense, our life will go back to normal. Have you ever thought about the different scenarios? What if the government does not allow the schools to resume? What if they resume and then there is a problem? Shortly before we got here, I don't know how many people have seen that news. I saw the news that South Korea, that opened up a school a few days ago, they've had to shut it down. Have you thought about what could happen if your school reopened, whether you are primary, you are uni, you are vocational school, whatever that school is, and then there is a case of a company, but I'm not going to mention that name. Many people have seen that story of where one company, I think it was initially 15, then 35, and I think it maybe 65, and they had to shut down the entire company. Okay, maybe you have also not heard of the NDDC company that had to completely shut down their operations because of one. So the scenario is very fluid and is very uncertain, and therefore, this issue of leveraging technology needs to go beyond just a casual approach or something you just do on the side. Everybody needs to get serious about it. Because if we are not going to go extinct, then we must find a way to adapt. That really is the message that COVID is telling us. And it's very exciting. If there is any sector that can say there is something good that can possibly happen out of COVID, is education. Even though I'm not going to dwell too long on that, but I just hope that our policymakers will then wake up from the old policies that has put e-learning in shackles and has made it impossible for it to move on. I hope that this forces them and all the realities. It's very interesting now to see the Ministry of Education and NUC telling the universities to go E, when for many years, all the proposals and all the advocacies and all the efforts, there's just been a stone wall. You have to have a room filled with 100 computers for e-learning. Anyway, that's an aside. So if we are not going to go extinct, we must adapt. And that is why technology is one of the things that will not just make us to survive, it can make us to extend. Anybody who is in that sector right now needs to start preparing for all sorts of scenarios. I saw a school recently, I think day before yesterday, they've opened up a virtual school, and guess what? They're admitting students from any school. You don't even need to be their student before you can join that school, all right? Schools should start getting ready, whatever it is, that there are certain students that may not be able to join, either out of fear or out of underlying illnesses. There are facilitators, lecturers, teachers. It will just not be the same. So the issue about technology is not about the nice to have or about here and now. And I just want to run through very quickly of what you can do. I enjoy what they just said, but if I can speak about it in very simple business terms. The first thing is that, yes, you must accept the fact that things have changed. Stop living in a world that you think that, okay, there will be an executive fiat and then things will go back to normal. No, things have changed. And just assume that you're about to start that school, or you are, as the vice chancellor or whatever you are, a head of department, just try and reset and assume that it's just starting and this is the new reality. So things have changed, and then be well assured that it will not disappear by the fiat of any government. The journey back is very long, it's very arduous, and we may never be able to even get back to what we used to know as normal. Then you got to prepare your team and yourself for the change, which is what Deji was trying to lay out. There are different elements that make up what is called this learning management system, LMS. You must know which one of it is suitable for you. You must know which one of it do you want to combine, where do you want to start from. You need to really prepare for it emotionally, psychologically. It's completely different. The touch and the touch and feel is very, very different. And the good news is that you can start from where you are with what you have. You do not need to break the bank to get it started. So it's about finding the help that you need so that you can leverage on what you have. You can then scale. One of the advantages of technology, and I hope Bumi will touch on that extensively, is the fact that unlike the traditional model, if you want to open a school, you have to get the land, you have to find the money, you have to build the structures, you have to get the teachers, all your expenditure is front loaded. And then you start to hope that you can attract the students and that they will come and that you can charge the right price and that you can find the balance between how much you have to spend and how much you are making. One of the things technology does in this space is that you can actually backload your costs, meaning you do not have to expend so much money. So if you are running a 2-classroom school and you want to have live classes, the cost you will incur is completely different if you are running a 10-classroom school. And you don't need to acquire the 10 before you run it. As you see students subscribe and the class get filled, you open a new one. So your incremental cost is a lot slower, and your recovery is before you spend. So they register, they pay, and then you now go pay for the service, and then you are able to find that balance. So it's an exciting mix that you need to get ready for. And by all means, I enjoy you to please enjoy the journey. Don't be frightened about it. Don't be overwhelmed with it. It's something to be enjoyed because a new level will be attained, new skills. And if you have ever attended any e-course that's properly structured, you understand how immersive it can be. I've done a couple and I tell you, it's so immersive that years after you can still recall almost vividly what happened in that class. Because unlike trying to catch what the lecturer is saying just one time, you can go over and over and over, particularly if you are very interested in it, and easy reference. So I just run quickly now as I try to land. Therefore, in summary of what I've tried to say in the last few minutes is the fact that you can't afford to sit down and do nothing. It is not an option. If you're a player in this space, doing nothing is equal to signing off your existence, and then one day you become an edifice inside a museum somewhere that you once existed. The second is that you should be comforted and confident that you don't have to break the bank to start. Okay, so you can start small. There are easy entry points that will lead you slowly into a more robust system. But one thing you must know is that to succeed in the long run, you must find the appropriate solution. You can't run a virtual school by just cobbling a video call app, you couple with an instant messaging app, and then they exist independently. It will break down. You won't be able to manage performance. You cannot coordinate the activities of your teachers, of your students. So you need to find the right platform that combines everything that you need. And then, like Professor Oshika said, it is an opportunity that this crisis has presented. And therefore, everybody must be ready to rise up and to seize it. And this is the time to start doing something. Don't wait. Just 1 minute, just wait. Use this slow period to get started so that by the time the school is back fully, you are ready to run. Sorry, Tope, I hope I didn't go over my time.
Thank you very much, Tima. All right, so yes, so Prof have spoken about the implication of COVID-19 on our economy, and Tima spoke about the technology in the education sector, leveraging technology in the education sector. We've heard Deji speak about the technology itself, how to choose the elements that things are supposed to consider, and his experience from both globally and locally on lecturers feel what they do, what they have to do. But one of the things I've also found out is cash is king. So which is why we saved the cash part as the last part, because we also know that there's nothing that can be done without money. So Bumi will be talking about funding, investing in e-learning technology, investing in education. So our question is, how has funding impacted the adoption of e-learning technologies in Nigeria? So please, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Tope, and thank you, Prof. Thank you, everybody, for having me. And I think a lot has been said already that is very, very, very appropriate and very apt, considering the fact that, money is the lifeblood of any organization, right? And funding is a critical issue. And a lot of times we might have, beautiful ideas, beautiful concepts, but it kind of comes down to, do we have the capital to support it? Based on what my colleagues have said already, one thing is already established, and it is the fact that e-learning, digital is here. Digital is here to stay. And if we had any doubt before, the doubt is gone, right? Because we're in a situation now where it's really a case that everybody is using technology every single day. If you're not using it for your work in terms of, Zoom and Teams and Skype, if you're not using it every day, then maybe you're using it and you're teaching your kids during the lockdown, and you're using all the different tools, whether you're using Google Drive or you're using any tool that your kids' school is adopting to use. So I think basically the jury is out, right? And technology is here to stay. Digital is here to stay. So that's a good one. Now, the second piece is that it's already established that there's a sense of urgency right now because kids are being left behind. The level of literacy is low. The ability for us to produce graduates that are job ready, is very high. When you go to the industry and corporates, they're not finding enough people. and they're kind of asking themselves, you know, we don't believe in the education system anymore, and so on and so forth. So that's the current state. Now, COVID-19 overlay on top of everything now means that there's a sense of urgency. For me, it's like World War III. And during any kind of world war, there's now an opportunity for a reset. Things are going to change around, and then things will settle. The question is, where do we want to be? Do we want to be left behind? Do we want to be leading? Do we want to, where are we going to be? And I think, you know, the question then is that, are we thinking our old way? Are we thinking incremental, or are we thinking transformational? We have a choice. As government, we have a choice. It's one of those three things. As entrepreneurs who are trying to create solutions, create companies, make money, create jobs in the edtech space, we have a choice, right? Old way, incremental, or transformational. And that's going to determine where we stand after everything. As teachers, right, who were teaching our old ways, we come to the classroom, we talk in front of students, right? Where as teachers in higher institutions, I know the fight that was going on with government in terms of ASU and IPACE and everything, and it's like, we don't have enough lecturers, so we're teaching in 3 places, so we have 3 salaries, and so it is just difficult for us to, you know, figure all these different things out, you know. And I'm asking myself, isn't this the perfect opportunity to use digital so that you can actually teach in 5 places and make money and exponential, right? So it's like we're having the wrong conversation. Again, as lecturers and teachers, we have 3 choices. As government as well, we have 3 choices. As students, we have 3 choices. Which choice are we going to make? Now, as we try to make those choices, I'm now tying it back to investment. The question is going to be, is the capital going to be there? Because if the capital is not there, if the financing is not there, you can have all these lofty plans. It sounds fantastic, but then, you know, there's nothing to back it. And my belief is that the answer is simple. And I think the answer is simple in the sense that it's not like, oh, let's give a lot of money to universities. It will be spent in the wrong places, in my opinion. I don't think that's the answer. I don't think the answer is that we need to, you know, I think the answer is very simple. And I think the answer is that, number one, follow the money, right? So where's the money? First, market sizing. You know, how many people do we have in Nigeria? How many people are, you know, are taking JAMB every single year, trying to get into universities, right? So that's one. So put that aside. Number 2 is how much money, you know, is going out of the country, right? I think that number is somewhere around, is $1.5 billion. The last time I checked, you know, 2015, market size, right? 75,000 students that's going out to go and pay in the UK on an average $35,000, right? Market size. So those are 3 numbers that I'm just using to quantify market size, right? The number of people taking JAMB, you know, every year, the number of people who are out there, 75,000, the amount of dollars we're spending outside, you know, $1.56 billion. That's my market size. The next question I now ask is, how do I tap that market size and use it to mobilize financing, and how is it going to come? For me, what that says is that you know, and everybody has a role to play. The simple solution is that you need to actually make the cost of going to school. I haven't even talked about like Lome and things like that, right? Just the neighboring universities, you know, and the market size, the amount of money going there. So that's my market size. So in Nigeria, how do we fix it? It's very, very simple. Number 1 is that the price of going to school needs to reflect market price, right? So that the universities can be run as a business. That's one, that's very, very simple. And so that the teachers and lecturers can be held accountable, and the administration of universities can be held accountable to deliver a service to customers, not to do a favor to students. Mindset shift, transformational. Now, once you do that, the university is making money, but as it's making money, the demand for quality the demand for service, the demand for outcomes in terms of employable students that graduate is going to, the market will just fix itself, right? So that's component one of the solution. Now you're going to ask me, okay, how are these students going to pay for it, considering the fact that affordability is the issue? Okay, good question. I'm asking the question and I'm answering it as well. So the answer to that is that you now have to create a system, right? In the US, so I was privileged to be able to go to school in the US, but it's not because I had the money, it's not because my parents had the money, it's because there was a system, right? And what was the system? The system assesses me and says, okay, how much do my parents make? How much money am I making, and so on and so forth? And I have an identity. Very, very simple, right? So it means that in Nigeria, we need to have the identity system. I need to know who you are. I need to be able to get your BVN and be able to just know your sense of, your earning capability. Now, then there's a pool of money that is now a subsidy. In the US, it's called the Pell Grant. The Pell Grant uses your affordability and your condition to be able to determine the amount of that market rates that you have to pay in tuition to subsidize your, tuition. That's step one. That will make sure that people are not left behind, that are in rural areas and poor, and super smart people that are in, some remote location in Borno or Ogun State or Edo or whatever, right? So that's one layer. So the second layer is then you're going to have your scholarships for people who are like exceptional, right? So that's fine. The third layer is you're going to have like a loan system. Now the loan system has to be commercial, right? So you democratize it so banks can do loans and for students, right? And this is long-term loans. It's going to be like 10-year loans, 5-year loans. I'm not talking about 6-month loans and 9-month loans. 10-year loans. Okay, so you're going to ask a question. How are banks in Nigeria who are sharks, sorry if there's any banker on the call, how are they going to actually give you like, 5%, 6% loans for 10 years? Good question. That's the role of the government to backstop it. So the government will backstop it. So the kind of money that they're putting and saying, hey, we're using to fund universities and everything, and universities want so much more, you now cut all of that away. It's not needed. The university is running as a business. You will now take that money and use it to backstop the commercial banks, the microfinance banks, who are going to issue these loans to the students, right? So to me, that is transformational. It's simple, and you're not asking for new money. There's no brand new money in all this conversation we're talking about. We're just adjusting the value chain so that it makes sense. Now, when you do that, capital, foreign capital, development capital, investment capital will now come in as well. And now you've solved the funding issue, right? So now students can get loans. Now, even universities can get loans because they're running as a business. Now, teachers and lecturers are being paid much better and they're being held accountable for service. Now, a student that's paying, 500,000 naira or 300,000 naira per year is going to be asking you, say, am I getting 300,000 naira worth of value? It's going to the accountability will fix itself. So in summary, I'd like to thank everybody again for having this conversation. Sense of urgency is extremely high, right? Digital is here to stay, right? We need scale to be able to teach the number of students and population that we have. Our lecturers and teachers have to rekit and reskill themselves in this new digital world. We have to also invest in that. Even the teachers need loans so that they can go and get retrained in a digital world, right? So even that, a bunch of universities spring up to offer teacher training services that is priced at market rate, right? And government can now subsidize those loans on the other side. So we just need to fix the value chain and then investment will flow in. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Boom. Well, so people have not been asking questions, but once we got to the cash is king part, we have questions flowing in already. Yeah. So, so can I confirm if Professor Awuriwa is ready now with our presentation? she's still on here. So we just go straight to the question part. But I probably want to start with Bumi. So because you've mentioned some of the things, so we spoke about affordability, accessibility in a way, and there's a question that says, if we adapt the system the US does, do we not run the risk of losing our privacy, so financially and otherwise, as we will be required to open up individual earnings and extended financial connections? There are students in the US who get lost in the middle. Their parents are not rich enough to pay for them, but not poor enough to qualify for the government program on education. Now, so that question is for you.
So I think the reality of it is that there's no perfect system, you know, in the world. There's no perfect system. The question is it better than what you have today? And I think the answer is yes. What you have is incredibly broken. So fix it, then we'll solve that problem when we get there. So wouldn't we be in a better place if we have the type of US system and we're trying to fix that one compared to where we are now? I think really that's the question. That's the answer.
Okay, so can we say that once we fix that, because one of the things that we want to know is, for low-income schools as an example, where are they supposed to start from? Because we cannot wait until the old system is being built. So my question is, if we are looking at the cost to set up a full-blown e-learning system for any educational institutions in Nigeria, and looking at how we can create affordability, sustainability, and how we can actually build skill, what do we do? How do we help this institution right now before we have that system that can cater for the affordability on the parent side? How does school even right now start saying they want to deploy e-learning solution for their institutions? Hello, Bumi. Nobody's muting you actually.
Okay, the host has to unmute me actually. I think that your question about where do we start, you know, how do we wait, you know, I mean, I think one thing we have to realize is that, you know, globally, you know, capitalism, money is greedy, right? So money is hungry, money is looking for a place to go, you know. So a lot of times you don't have to worry too much about like, okay, do this one and do that one. If you fix the economics and it becomes profitable, like you'll be scared how fast money will come in terms of like the funding to unlock this kind of opportunity. There's global capital. There's a lot more capital. If you have capital, if you have money in some parts of Europe, in like Switzerland or something like that, you know, or Japan, you know, do you know the interest rate? Your interest rate is like negative 3.3%, meaning that for storing that money in the banking system, you are paying. So that money is looking for a place to go, you know, and now that we're in a global economy, money will move, you know, into places, right? So the point is that, you know, what you need is entrepreneurship and capital. Now, you need the regulatory environment to open up to say, okay, we're ready for business, right? So if a university vice chancellor announces tomorrow and says, hey, I am embracing XYZ digital, do you know how many proposals they will get tomorrow, right? And if they announce this business model, public-private partnership will share in the upside, do you know how many proposals they will get? Like, let one university experiment with it. They'll get too many. Their problem will be which one they're going to choose. So I think we're focused on the wrong challenge, right? Which is sort of the mindset. A lot of times we're protecting what we don't even have. So I think if we can get over the mindset by having this transformational approach, this sense of urgency that, hey, we have X number of months to get this right. If we don't, we're left behind. If we take that mindset, trust me, everything will fall in place.
All right. Thank you very much, Bumi. All right, so my question goes to Professor Awoshika. Now, so engaging learners is key to the deployment of e-learning solution. And so my question is, what really is the right amount of engagement that should be worked into deploying e-learning solutions for an institution? So how do we build the right engagement into e-learning? So from your experience in and out the country, how can we do this better? Where are we with building engagement into e-learning technologies, basically?
Yeah, thank you, Tokwe. First of all, we have to we have to do a mind shift. The focus is not on you, the teacher. The focus is now on the students, the learner. So the learner has to be involved when you talk about engagement. They have to, first of all, be responsible for their own learning. And a lot of people would ask, you know, so how can a 9-year-old or an 8-year-old be responsible for their own learning? Well, they are doing it. I've seen them do it now. You just have to entrust that activity to them and they learn. So you make it a learner-centered, and then you build, you don't think that you're trying to lecture or you're trying to teach the student anything. What you're trying to do is create the enabling environment for the students to learn, you know, so that they are doing stuff. You can put all your, you know, didactic things on the web. That's what your LMS is for. But then when you create your activities within the course, you are putting things that students will do, so that, you know, they get engaged. You know, you're chatting with them. They're in a discussion forum. You're asking them to go out and research. You're asking them to go and interview somebody. You know, it's live. That is when you get a very interactive, engaging course.
Okay, so that raises like 3-4 questions in my mind. And basically because, yes, I understand. So yes, and I remember you mentioned, I said for a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old. But now the 3-year-olds are home, the 4-year-olds are home. And even for the 9-year-old and the 10-year-olds, I'm still probably looking at it like majority of this falls also on the parents. Because the 3-year-old, there's connectivity, the 4-year-old, there's devices, the 5-year-old, there's hand holding for all these activities. So as many engagements as we put into it, it's also like extra work. So now there is now the mother who is the CEO and who is the PA, who is the public officer, who is the husband, who is the mom, now is the teacher. And now is now becoming like the assistant as well. So when we look at all these things, my question probably will go to, let's Mark probably answer this question. So how do we get parents and guardians prepared for the e-learning world? How do we help them to get even the right skills? For example, I discovered that even for my own children, there's some things I know I can teach, but there are some that I know that I don't have the capacity to be able to pass that knowledge the way it's supposed to be passed to you. And you also look at it in such a way that there are times when we now move from one school, just say there's a Zoom call today for mathematics, and we do the mathematics, and then we are done. But that is not all that it's meant to be. So how do we get parents ready? How do we get parents and guardians ready to be able to do this? That's my question.
Well, Tokwe, you have asked a very tough question because let me complicate it before I try to answer it. It's easy now when the parents are also home and many people are working from home. Now, complicate that if down the line, the lockdown gets sufficiently eased and maybe for conversation purposes, companies ask their employees to come back to work. Then the equation completely becomes very challenging because what do? You can't take them along. You can't afford to abandon your career. It's not straightforward. But again, like everybody has said, it is a journey. And so if we stay with this current scenario where if it is at all possible that either an older sibling or a parent is available, or sometimes grandparents are available, the key thing, which is what I like to harp on, is that like Bumi said, there must be a complete shift in mindset. The way the learning is structured has to be such that that system recognizes an in-house person as a teaching assistant for the very young ones. Even for the ones that are not so young, they are not all of them have a lot of self-management, self-coordination skills that you can entirely leave it to them, which is why it has to go beyond just the Zoom and the WhatsApp, because it means that in that conversation, there must be a support, a family support, a home support that sees the flow, that is involved in the design, that is involved in the flow, such that whether they are the 2 years or the 3 years or they are the 9, the 10, even the 14, there is visibility, and the school system can leverage on the home support to make it happen. But where you have both parents working and you have maybe the lockdown, you see everybody has to go back to work, then it means that that entire ecosystem has to be revisited. But trust me, we have to find a way to make it happen. Because remember that we are not speaking about this as a single mode option. We still believe that in one form or the other, either now or somewhere down the line, the traditional system will still be possible. But what we are saying is that technology makes it possible for us to take care of the eventualities of COVID, and then allows us to extend it even beyond that, irrespective of how this entire equation eventually lands.
All right, thank you very much, sir. The other flip to my question is on the connectivity. And this actually goes to Mr. Deji. So please, Deji, can you hear me? Okay, so probably let me throw it open to Prof. And Prof, so yes, like I said, your question brought other questions. So we're saying by getting the parents ready, let's even assume that yes, we can get them to do the mind shift and to get them prepared enough to handle their children through online learning. But what happened to connectivity? Connectivity is still a major challenge. If I remember, you also mentioned during your presentation as well, even in businesses, not just even in homes. So we have, and for those that have it, it's coming at a very huge cost. But the majority, about 50% of Nigerian homes actually don't have connectivity. So how do we do this? Because e-learning will not happen outside of this connectivity. So how do we handle it such that the burden is not so much on the parents or on the learners, so to speak?
Thank you, Tope. We have decided that COVID-19 is unusual. It has happened, and it's a people problem, and it impacts all of us. And so what I think I would like to see, or what we should have, is actually the internet service providers giving us some kind of a break. You know, because I agree with you. I have spent like 60% more on data right now. And it's not even just for school or work alone. So we need their cooperation. We need for them to give back. We need for them to sponsor some of these the usage, you know, whether it's for the parents, whether it's for the schools, so that, you know, children can learn. However, e-learning is not the only way to help people. We still have radio, we still have television, but what we actually need to do is, how do we get devices, even radios that uses batteries, how do we get these devices into the hands of those who cannot even afford connectivity? So after the government has invested in fiber or bandwidth, and, you know, the ISPs have provided us with data at reduced costs, you know, what can we also do for those who don't use bandwidth, but also need access to education? So I'm thinking there has to be some sort of innovative device that it only gives, it uses less bandwidth. It only gives student access to their school lesson, nothing more, nothing less. It doesn't call, it doesn't do any other thing than to do school. Can we invent that, so that, everybody, low-income schools, people with disabilities, people in IDPs, they also can benefit from this learning.
All right, thank you very much, Ma. All right, so, and I think, I'm not sure, I don't think we've kind of hit this issue on the, as in, I've not seen the complete solution yet, so which is why I'm still tweaking my question in a way. So yes, because one of the things I want us to achieve is not just saying these are the problems or these are the solutions, it's also to say this is how we can actually move forward from here. So because identifying the solution is easier, implementation is always very, very hard at times. So and we're saying from financing to implementation. So which is saying, so if we're saying we are looking at, yes, we can get connectivity, let's look for devices that are low on tech and getting it over to probably parents and stuff. But the other part is the way so there's COVID-19 and we have palliatives. So one of the things I've seen is when it comes to, if it is free, it might not be effective. But at the same time, the people that actually need it might not actually get to them. So you have someone who does not really need it having access, and those that need it don't have access. So what are our immediate next steps to say, if we're actually going to get a solution to the connectivity, how do we do it? What are the things what are our immediate next steps to finding a proper solution to this? Who do we have to talk to? So, Prof?
Oh, that question is for me?
Our tech person is not here, so yeah.
Well, see, it's first of all, it has to be an investment on the part of the government and possibly private, so sort of a PPP arrangement where we increase our bandwidth, we increase the powers of the devices, the ability to connect. It's not something that one individual can do. So what's the solution for increasing bandwidth? It's, for these ISPs and the government and any other private party to work together so that we can increase the bandwidth. We can give ourselves a certain deadline to say by such and such a time we have to, it's just like building a house or a school. You give yourself the deadline to get to it, you get all the people involved to it, and then it's done. So yeah, it's a PPP, that's the solution for that.
So if I can, I don't know if I can just contribute a few things there, Tokwe, can I?
Yes, please go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Tokwe, and thanks, Prof. So when we talk about things like this, sometimes the way we frame it makes it look like there is a one bullet that will solve all the problems. But in reality, you're speaking about execution, it doesn't go that way. So we need to kind of disaggregate everything. So there is the private school, there's the public school. So for the private school, believe me, technology will actually make that service more affordable than what parents are currently paying right now. And the economics and the dynamics of expanding their services and making that to work is a lot more straightforward. But when it comes to the public school, which again goes back to what Bumi has said, we need to fix that value chain. We need to fix that process. We need to fix the thinking behind it. Because if government can rally and raise all this money that they are trying to raise for the relief of COVID, if Lagos State can wake up and say, I want to have a security trust fund and they make government, and private institutions to come and be contributing to that trust fund. If we are serious about education, believe me, it's actually cheaper to implement this technology holistically than what they are kind of claiming to be spending on the traditional delivery that they're doing. But the missing thing is that political will to create that framework. And while we are on that journey, I'm aware that some of the telcos are already coming up with packages, which again, if the schools can come together, if the ministry, either at the federal or at the state level, can just summon a meeting and make this as a direct request. Because right now, there are solutions that are supposed to be mimicking the CUG, closed user group for voice, for data, where, like Prof said, it kind of just limits what you can do, but for a small token, it gives you unlimited access for data for education. Now, we need to get to a point where this becomes holistic. This becomes end-to-end. And there is a deliberate kick in also for the private sector to know what they get by doing that. So there are different options. You've also spoken about devices. These OEMs do business in Nigeria, they do business globally. It's all about putting that system in place that makes the government to make a deliberate demand to say, for the next 5 years, next 10 years, there's a state of emergency in the educational sector. This is how we want to go about it. And like Bumi said, once you get all this in place, you'll be shocked as to how it won't happen overnight. It won't solve all the problem with one bullet, but every passing term, every passing semester, every passing session, you will see clearly that there is progress. And with that level of progress, you will find more encouragement for more funds and more capacity to come in that will move us along. But one thing we can't afford to do is do nothing. And there are many places where we can start from, and then we can grow it from there.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. But before I continue with my questions, Professor Awuriwa is ready. So if she can go ahead with her presentation. So we can just allow her to go out with the presentation. Then after that, then we move ahead with the rest of the questions that we have.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
I'm sorry to be joining you so late. I had technical glitches and I missed most of the wonderful conversation that has been going on. I hope with my own little token, I can still contribute to the discussion. Professor Awosika asked me to talk about the obstacles and challenges facing e-learning adoption in higher education in Nigeria. Where I look at the obstacles and challenges in 2 ways. There are those that are internal to the institution and those that are external to the institution. By external, I mean government, agencies. But let me take the obstacles and challenges that are internal to the institution. My first one on those challenges are the fact that there is a little or no understanding of the transformative power of e-learning in our institutions. I know some of us know a little about it, but those who should know or who should have the feel for what it is and what it can do for us, they don't seem to be in the know. Most of the time, even our lecturers, our administrators, our management at the institutional level, they tend to pay lip service to to e-learning or to distance learning. We have ODL, dual mode. What those really mean is known to just a few. of us. And it appears there's a reluctance to even know more about it. And maybe because if we know about it, it might force us to change the way we do things. So resistance to change is one of the issues or the obstacles that I see in the adoption of e-learning at the institution level. The reward structure and infrastructure are also some of the issues. And as a result of not understanding the power of e-learning to transform the institution, we do not have, our institutions do not have what I would call articulated policy in their strategic planning. Of course, the external challenges, I'll talk about this with the government bureaucracy. And as a nation, we still pay lip service to education as a tool for nation building. So of course, e-learning will be part of the education, the holistic education that I'm talking about. Slide, please. The transformative power of e-learning is a tool that we can use in educational institutions to provide opportunities for all, so that, like I said, no person is left behind. Those of us on this platform this afternoon, this meeting, we know that there are hundreds of thousands of our students, of our young people, school leavers, secondary school leavers, who are unable to gain admission to higher institutions. If we as a group, as a nation, if we understand what e-learning can do for us, we should be able to provide spaces for all that need to learn. If Indira Gandhi University, the Open University, only one university can admit and cater for the needs of 4 million people. We have about 47 universities in Nigeria and several other institutions, polytechnics, colleges of education. There's no reason why we cannot provide opportunities for at least 2 million of our young people roaming the streets every year, coming back to do a JAMB or the joint, the UTME exams. So if we also understand the transformative power of e-learning, we use it to create powerful curriculum for powerful learning outcomes. The education we are providing to our young people at the university, polytechnic, colleges of education today is more or less like the industrial age education. The learning, the outcomes of learning that we could use e-learning to actually provide learning experiences for profound learning experiences for our learners, to prepare them for the world of work that they are going to enter when they leave our institutions. We also are not preparing them for education for self-reliance. And we still lecture, few projects. Yes, there are some programs that have inbuilt projects, assignments, practical into them. Even then, we still teach those courses as if they are the classroom-based lecture method. Slide, please. Slide. If we have known about distance learning, ODL, our agencies like the NUC, they've been touting it for years, almost more than a decade or so. But we still have not changed the way we do things at the university. I'm more familiar with the universities than the polytechnics and colleges of education, but I assume it's still similar in those institutions too. So we're not we have not tapped the power of e-learning, and we are refusing we are reluctant to lead the way we have been doing it. If end broke, why fix it? But it's broke. Let me use the American slang here. It's broke, so we need to fix it. E-learning can offer us the opportunity to really do things differently. We still need part of the resistance to change might also have to do with the class system, what I call the class system. So we look on the face-to-face in Nigeria as the only way for people to obtain their degrees. When they do it through the, for example, the National Open University, any other way, look on those as inferior until we're able to integrate seamlessly courses taken from distance learning program, e-learning program, and integrate them into the one taken face-to-face, and they all count in the degree program of our students. Until we do that, we continue to create the inferior, the superior kind of programs, degree programs. So I think we're still resistant to the change that e-learning signify. Slide, please. I've tried to look at some institutions' strategic planning. If e-learning is mentioned at all, it's more or less in passing. It has not formed part of the strategic planning of the institution, so much so that sizable fund is allotted to bringing up e-learning. Some of our institutions have set up distance learning programs, but as a separate entity, the distance learning, they call it institute or center in different institutions. But most of the e-learning institutions or institutes, they seem to be like the orphan. Do your thing over there, don't bother us here. Because what we are doing through our old system is still better, and it's still the way we want to do it. So if institutions strategically plan for e-learning, I think they will fund it much more than they are doing currently. The unwillingness to invest resources in e-learning also means that the institutions are losing a lot of opportunities. One of such is increase in enrollment. The whole of the institutions in Nigeria, we've now been able to admit up to 500 or 600,000 of admission seekers in our nation. That is too poor. One institution can absorb the rest of them through e-learning if we plan for it. If we consciously fund it, we're going to have an opportunity to increase enrollment, and that will bring in more income for the institution. And of course, that means we're going to employ more people. So the unemployment in the nation today is not unconnected with the fact that we do not plan well. And when we do plan, we do not implement according to our plan. So, so many people are unemployed today, but with e-learning, we can have many arms or many sessions of a course with several people teaching it. So that means more support services will be needed, more lecturers or facilitators will be needed. And of course, more instructional designers will be needed to design effective instruction. Slide, please. Slide.
That's the yeah. Okay. We've come to the end.
We have more, but there's a, anyway, I can just talk about the external factors, which I see as the role of the government in education. Education, when well articulated, when well planned, actually is a very significant tool for nation building. Our education system is in disarray because our government actually are not planning. They are not planning for the next generation of learners. They are not planning for the, what I call the Gen X population. And that means that they, we continue to turn out graduates that are not fit for the workplace. To plan effectively for education and to use it as a tool for nation building, we have to, first of all, as a nation, define what we need. What kind of education do we want to offer young people? What kind of workplace do we want young people to work in? So we begin.
Hello? Okay, I think we've lost her. All right, thank you, Prof. All right, thank you very much, ma'am. We have questions for her, but probably when she comes back, we can go ahead with that. And that is still one of the things that we're talking about in deployment of e-learning technology. So my question goes to Mr. Deji. You can continue. So, Mr. Deji, please, are you there? Hello, Deji. Okay, so it's like Deji's offline. Hello? Please, can you unmute yourself? All right, let's go ahead. So, one of the things that Professor Woruwa was talking about was manpower. And Professor Woshika, please, you're going to answer this question for us, at least since you're an educator and you're also an implementer. And one of the things that we're looking out is this. So, we're saying technology can improve learning and scale quality instructions for large audience. But yet, the red tape surrounding the process of accreditation is still an impediment to higher institutional learning in Nigeria. So, first is, yes, do we have a policy on e-learning or on online education? If no, how do we fix it?
Well, I really wish that we had thought to bring people who are in charge of our e-learning in Nigeria to this forum so that they can answer that question. But I have mixed enough with them to know that we do not have a policy on e-learning. They separate ODL from e-learning, maybe because it's ODL is dual mode and e-learning is 100% online. They think Nigeria is not ready for 100% online. So they concentrated on ODL. There's a policy for ODL, but even then, the policy still needs to be reworked because it's been, maybe more over 10 years, maybe almost 15, 20 or 20 years that this policy has been in place. And you know how technology grows. So what they knew when they did that, when they wrote that policy is not what we know now. It's like when in 1997, when I got involved with e-learning, we were using emails. They would send the book to us, and then we would use email to communicate with the instructor. Now it's a whole world of difference. And they have not been able to incorporate some of the newer things. Even when we started a few years back, there was no software for proctoring exams. Now there is. So you can do your exams online, Nobody is going to be worried about you cheating. So the powers that be need to be up to date so that they can also bring their policies up to date. So right now, they themselves would categorically tell you they have no policies on e-learning.
So moving forward, how do we solve this problem? Because one of the things I've seen is if we still don't solve that problem, it does not really matter how much work we do on this side to implement technology, to implement e-learning. We're still going to get to that point where we have to interface with them. So how do we scale this auto, basically?
You see, again, these questions are very unfair because it requires a government that, and I don't like putting the blame on governments, but this particular blame is on the government because they are the ones that are supposed to the policy. I, for example, as an individual, have actually written and science, take it and use it, and still nothing. So they have to have the willingness and the personal, I mean, the governmental will to make these changes. So that if you don't know, ask people. I mean, get enough minds together, and not the old cliques. Get people who know what's going on with e-learning together, and let them craft a policy for you. We can push it back and forth, rewrite, write and rewrite, get everybody involved, ask a student, ask the lecturers, ask the person in government. Let's sit together, set a deadline on us. Tell us, you have such a time to produce a policy that is fixable, that is usable, and but it has to come from the government.
Okay.
Can I jump in here?
Sorry, hold on, ma. I think I want to push this to Bumi. Bumi, please, okay. Are you there? So we are saying, yes, we need the government. So it's looking more like a public-private partnership right now. So I'm putting Bumi on the spot and say, yes, after this, can we say that we can organize that public-private partnership to iron this out, look at our policies, to work with the government, whatever we need to do. And we're saying yes, because we can keep talking, we can talk about this, we can have this webinar every month, but if we really don't take action, we still having this webinar in the next 1 year. So what I'm asking for is, yes, we are looking at these issues and we know that now it is critical. It affects everybody, both and private, but everybody actually. So it's a problem that cuts across everyone, and once it's solved, people can feed off from the same tree. So can Bumi, I'm sorry, this is to you. I'm sorry, I'm not putting you on the spot. We're just trying to, it's a dialogue. We're trying to solve the problem. So can we have a roundtable, public-private partnership to solve the problem of education, to look at our policies, to create policies that can transform education in Nigeria?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Tokwe. I think, maybe I'll start first by saying that, I've focused on Nigeria for about 9 years, right? And I think, I'm always trying to form my conclusion. And I think one of my conclusions is that, we have a situation where, number one, we blame government a lot, right? And which is fine because things are not working. But I think that at some point we need to kind of move past it and kind of say that, what really needs to happen is synergy, and there's enough blame to go around. So it's sort of a mindset shift that we need to make, because the moment we're just pointing, it assumes that we are perfect on the private sector side or as individuals. It also puts the other person on a defensive mode. So let's scrap that. Whatever little things, the fact that, so again, this is my theory now. So whatever little incremental things is being done by our government counterparts, for example, the fact that we have an ODL policy, there's probably 20 countries that doesn't have at all. So let's even celebrate that. So we can now say, okay, celebration, yay. We now say, okay, how do we make it better? You know, can we work together and make it better? Now you've opened the door, you know, you've opened the door into a constructive conversation. So I think that's one. So we need to celebrate the little wins to change the conversation. Two is we need to now reach out. You know, my experience with, you know, the government side is really that, like, government people are not bad, they're individuals, they're just like us. But the problem and the gravity of the problem is so complicated that sometimes, you know, even us, even in our personal families, right? It's so complicated, like, hey, where do I start? So now imagine somebody dealing with the monster called Nigeria, right? So it's overwhelming. And so perhaps, like, it's like, where do I start? And so I look around, and if I were on the other side, maybe that's the thing I would do. Now, if I give the benefit of doubt like that, and I reach out, I think what you'll find is that they'll reach out back. If you call this webinar now, and you say, okay, it's public sector, private sector, I'm seeing that if the language used and the approach is constructive, they'll come to the table, right? So that's first step, is can you get everybody to the table? Second step is, can everybody have an open mind, which I've kind of mentioned earlier. The gravity of the problem sometimes and our approach of blaming can prevent that in some cases. So let's say we move beyond that. Then the last piece is COVID-19. COVID-19 has reset and shaken everybody. So I think you also have a window of an opportunity now where that openness will be there now more than ever. I worry that you'll probably have maybe 60 days, maybe 90 days, and then that window is closed. So I think if we take advantage of that window, have the conversation, it's constructive, everybody will come to the table. And I think now more than ever, we can have an attempt to solve this.
Okay. Thank you.
Right.
Can I jump in here?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think what we've been saying is blaming the government or blaming the institutions. We're trying to say there are problems, and we're trying to identify that, yes, there are problems about solutions. And a group like this is going to be a good basis, really, to start what we can call the advocacy group, to push for what e-learning can do for us as a nation. We've been talking about COVID-19. Yes, it's a good opportunity really for us to push the agenda of e-learning in our nation. Many of our students that are home now, they probably have been taking their courses online. But I still would not, maybe, like I said, we need to change the language from negative to positive. But even if at your own small level, you talk to people who should know, but because they are not willing to commit the resources that is needed, they will not listen to you, they ignore you. They want to do what is easy for them to do. But we all know that establishing e-learning programs is not easy. It's not easy upfront, but it gets easier once you begin to use it, because then you can see what the benefit of it. So yes, we can form an advocacy group and push for e-learning in our institutions, and COVID really is a godsend to us.
All right, thank you very much, Ma. All right, so my next question actually is for Professor Aguiwa. And so we are looking at the university system in the global space. And we understand that now a university status is largely determined by the quality and the quantity of its research. So therefore, most times when it's academic, there is always this pushback. And actually when you're saying, so there's traditional mode where the lecturer does necessarily don't have to create any lesson notes. I can just go into the class and start. But now a lot goes into in-learning from the instructor side. And depending on what you are creating, you're probably creating, for example, this presentation that we did today, the slide that you use, actually you spend time to create it. And so when it comes to e-learning, there are a lot of materials, at least you're an expert in instructional design as well. So I know that, so you can't just come into the class and just wing it. And once the university gets to that level, there's a lot of pushback in creating content and all those stuff, because especially because even you can't even, that doesn't even count for promotion. To say, oh, I'm an online lecturer and what research, I published 20 books. Yes. So how do we do it? What must we do? And how has this also impacted your university? So to say, how has this, number one, we know that yes, this has impacted the deployment of e-learning technology in universities, but how good has it been? I don't want to say how bad has it been, but what I really want to know is how do we move from where we are to a point where lecturers themselves can come to say, I want to go I want to do this, because they know that it's not just about the research. What do we need to change? Is there policy? Is there guidelines? Whatever we need to do, what do we need to do to move lecturers from this research mentality to actually going online to be teaching?
Well, you know, the university I worked with before I came back home, when we were trying to establish e-learning in our institution, actually the program that I designed was the first one to be fully online. So I was a part and parcel of the strategic planning for the institution. And one thing I keep stressing is that there has to be a way to recognize the amount of time, energy, and resources, personal resources, and that the instructors that they put into the design of their courses. So the institution started making it count in our annual evaluation. I don't know if they do annual evaluation of faculty members or lecturers here, but over there, a percentage of your annual evaluation points comes from your adoption of e-learning and how effective you've used it in your work. And of course, there are support systems. You know, once it counts in your evaluation, the higher your evaluation score, it also counts for the amount of raise you are going to get. So if we tie the reward structure with the amount of work that the lecturer or the instructor is going to put into the work, if we tie it together, the more you put your input for the university, the more the reward for you. I think we need to look at that when we're helping the institutions or even the nation to set the guidelines for adoption of e-learning in our nation. Also, the support, the kind of support system that was also provided, we also need to find a way to work that into each of our lecturers or instructors over there. Each of them has what we call instructional designers, working with them one-on-one, apart from the regular training that we have. They also have instructional designers, technical people working with them. So the instructional designers will look at their courses, their old face-to-face courses, and see how they can help them rewrite it to fit into the online mode. So that hand-holding is essential for people who are starting afresh. So by the time you hold their hands in one or two courses, then they should be strong enough to develop the rest of their courses on their own. So when we are planning for this advocacy issue, is also the kind of support system that is available to instructors. So it should also be factored into. So the reward structure, yes, and the support system.
Thank you very much. All right, so we have just two more questions from the participants, and then we'll probably be able to call it a day. So my question goes to Professor Awoshika. I think this is actually very straightforward, but not just for what the answer is, since I'm not an expert like you. So someone asked, and says, can water be used for e-learning considering the fact that it is easily accessible to teachers and pupils in primary school?
Thank you. WhatsApp is good, but it doesn't provide every other amenities that you need for e-learning to be very efficient. You don't have a repository for your content to where, I mean, WhatsApp goes, it goes, you can't, it goes away, sort of, if I want to use that terminology. You can't access using WhatsApp. You have to now move your content from that platform to a different platform. So it's creating more diverse platforms for the same thing, when you can have one single one that houses your videos, it houses your discussions, it houses your assignments, it houses the readings, everything in one place. And it doesn't have to be an expensive one, but and then there are also limitations with WhatsApp. If you have a large class, you can't meet. I think they've gone to like 8 people now. So if you have a class that's larger than 8 people, you can't do videos on it. So there are some, it's good for a short term, something to just get something quickly to the students so they don't fall behind, but it's not a long-term solution.
Thank you very much. So we have the next question says, how do we incorporate practical trainings in virtual learning in order to ensure that students, especially in tertiary institutions, are equipped with related industry skills to make them employable right out of school? Prof, please.
Thank you. Actually, the innovative enterprise institutions that NBTE approved within Nigeria actually had that as their basis. In fact, I think it was put in place when Dr. Eze Kwesili was the Minister for Education. And what they did was, first of all, it's mostly, it's 70% practice and 30% theoretical. And you're supposed to have an affiliation with somebody in industry. It's a requirement so that, if you're teaching banking operations, then you are affiliated with banks that will take your students and give them practical experience when they do their CWAs for about 25 weeks of the duration of the course. So yes, it can be done. And in fact, it's being done. Samsung, for example, is taking people in so that when you get your theoretical from your school, you now go into Samsung and you put it into practice. I know BAE, a building and construction firm, is also doing it. So what we need to do more of is to now get more schools to get them married to more industrial companies, so that this can be a real full-blown solution.
All right, thank you very much. It looks like the advocacy job is just piling up right now. So this question is for Bumi. So someone is asking, says, do you believe we should be training teachers and educational professionals to address venture capital and other forms of investment attraction?
Okay, so I didn't get that question. Do we need to be training teachers on venture capital?
Do we need to be training teachers and educational professionals to address venture capital and other forms of investment attraction? I think, yeah, that's...
Okay, well, I mean, I think I'll take a step back. I don't think it's really about training for, you know, venture capital and everything. I think it's like foundational entrepreneurship, right? Like, so I'd rather rephrase it like, should we be training and teaching like the core of entrepreneurship, capitalism, and things like that? And I think the answer is yes. The question is, you know, how? And for me, again, sorry, I sometimes I can be drastic in my thoughts, but you know, my solution is also very, very simple. I think lecturers, I think almost like at the regulatory level, like lecturers should be mandated to do internships. And the internship should be like to go and work in a company for like 3 months, right? Like maybe every 3 years, just in your space, just go and work in that company for like 3 months. That's it, very simple. As an aside, I also think that, you know, practitioners, you know, company CEOs, company managers in the industry should be brought into the classroom as well, because they're complaining. They're complaining, students are not, you know, good enough. And again, this negative approach, we should like just throw it away, take responsibility, do something. Every company, maybe above a certain size, you literally approve like a 3-month sabbatical for your management team to also go and intern in the university. So go and be part of the solution. If you're saying the lecturers are now producing candidates that are ready for you, okay, do something about it. You know, again, I'm not trying to be like the you know, like I have all the answers, but I've also been part of being negative and blaming government. So, but then, you know, I'll take responsibility. But then I just kind of reflected and said, okay, it's not working. So what needs to change? And I'm just like, okay, I'm going to change my language, my approach, and take part of the responsibility, and don't pass blame, but take responsibility. So I do think that, yes, lecturers, teachers should be trained on entrepreneurship, and the easy way to do it, not in the classroom. The easy way to do it is just throw them, let them go and sell some deals. Let them go and do the PowerPoint slides. Let them go and, you know, design the, I don't know, the construction of the building on the, you know, like, so you don't need to now tell somebody that you need to throw away your curriculum from the 60s. Like, you would not need to say it. So I think that's the solution. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so we have someone, one of our participants says, teachers are teachers. So disagreeing with Bumi actually. Says teachers are teachers, they are professionals. So let's make them really good at what they do. They should not be chasing venture capitalists. Now the curriculum may need to be revamped to include simple entrepreneurship. But that takes me to one of the questions that I have here. And it's saying, how do we manage obsolescence of human knowledge? And perhaps even grappling the changing role of educators from the traditional educating system to online. So the profs, how do we manage obsolescence of human knowledge? Especially, even as we're talking about, yes, venture capitalists, entrepreneurship, even the knowledge for the lecturers have from the beginning when they started their career. So how do we ensure that as years goes on, they are not teaching us the 1960 way of architecture when there's something else? Prof.
Oh, so sorry.
Hello?
Now, can you rephrase that question, please?
How do we manage the obsolescence of human knowledge and grasp the changing role of educator from the traditional mode to online mode?
Well, see, the beauty of e-learning is it does not allow the obsolescence of human knowledge. I mean, it can go into history, but because everything is at your fingertips, what did we ever do before Google? You can find information on absolutely anything that you want to teach, want to learn, want to do, Google. So that alone has allowed knowledge to be renewable. almost practically anything you want to build, you can learn it. So it is now, it is with us. And so even when we say we transcend a period of time and it goes into history, e-learning has made it possible for you to, I mean, for example, if you publish a book, by the time the book comes out, a textbook, by the time the textbook comes out, it's been 3 years, so it's outdated. But now with e-learning, with technology, I mean, you can revise and rejig your content and the textbook. In fact, they have such a situation now where you can decide to use several chapters from 10 or 15 different books and use it for your online classes. So it helps you be fresh every time, so that you don't succumb to that obsolescence. But it takes dedication, and you have to love your students enough to want to put in that kind of work for them.
All right. Thank you very much. And so the final question actually goes to Bumi. So it's so we're saying, first of all, I have someone asking for partnership, and I'm saying, I remember you're saying that so if a university brings out an act today to say that they need, they want to go e-learning, they're going to follow it with proposals. But one of the things that we've also known is that the fact that I send you a proposal doesn't mean I know what I am doing. That's one. But the other part is, so if funding is readily available, it's readily available, why are more institutions not keen into going E? That's the first thing. Then also, what is the process like to partner with you for you to fund a university?
Well, I don't have that kind of money, but
that's the question.
I wish. But to the question of why are people not doing it? I think it probably varies per university, per institution, and those types of things. I think I think number one is probably the fact that we have not seen one big, massive success case in Nigeria. I think that's probably one. So we haven't seen success. So sometimes, like when you haven't seen it, you're scared, you're afraid. So I think that's really what it is. I think we are afraid. I think we need courage. And I think because we have not seen it, it's difficult for us to take that leap of faith. I think that's probably number one. It's just courage. I think number two is that which is also part of number one, is we're afraid to fail, right? And the spirit of entrepreneurship and the spirit of making bold wins is actually being comfortable with failure, right? And why are we afraid? Because Nigeria will make fun of you. Nigeria will like they will say, you are a disaster, you're a failure. We also haven't learned to actually celebrate failure in the context of like, what did you learn from it? So it's a mindset shift, and I think that is holding us back, right? I think the capital is there, especially when you think globally. I think the partnerships are there, both locally and globally. I think the capital is there. I think the talent is there. It's just courage.
Okay. So, and if you want to partner with, if a university wants to partner with you, what do they have to do?
I'm also looking for partnerships. I'm looking for partnerships. It's, I think there's room for partnership, and we're open to talk. To reach out. I'm on LinkedIn, and always willing and and ready.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, so I think we've come to the end of our questions. But someone is asking, how can private institutions go ahead with innovations in e-learning, considering that they are still under government regulations? Is it possible for a private school to run its own academic calendar using LMS when government has yet to decide on what to do?
I mean, I don't think, if I was to take that question, I mean, I don't think it's government decision. Again, I almost think that we need to be taking risks. Sometimes it's better to, again, this is just my philosophy, but sometimes it's better to like beg for forgiveness than to ask for permission. You know, we spend so much time asking for permission and waiting. It's government saying, like, just go ahead and like just do it. You know, that will be my own philosophy. I think just do it. Worst case, they'll come and they'll find you, and then you'll have a conversation, and then you talk to someone there. I'm just trying to, you know, teach more people. I'm trying to make people, like, and people are human, and they say, oh, okay, you're really just trying to make the country better. Okay, we'll reduce the fine to this much. Meanwhile, you have gone, you have made money, you've made impact, and maybe you have actually broken the boundaries, and then they see success. And guess what? The person that's coming to find you will come and celebrate with you.
Yeah. When you are teaching everybody. You are right. You are just teaching everybody bad thing, eh? But go on.
No, but really, my response was going to be just do it. I mean, there's no ifs and buts about it. Again, if they want to, if they come to you, you iron it out. If you keep on waiting for for example, and again, you can also do it within the law, even though they would say you can't have your own timetable. Well, you have your own public timetable, but you also have the timetable that you have in mind for your own students, and you put them online, and they're already doing e-learning. And when the government now knows what is going on, and they now wake up, then they find you already doing it. So just do it.
All right, Professor Wariwa.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, ma'am.
Okay. I will subscribe to the just do it issue, but we still need to bring the industry, the education, the government together in a way that we can understand we're working from the same template. We have to get together to design the template that will work for us. And that will come from our vision of education. What do we need education for Nigeria in the 21st or 22nd century? We need to have that. And we need to have, maybe talk to people who know more than we do. Because all this really stems from what do we want education to be able to do for us. Whether we acquire the education through e-learning, any traditional face-to-face or combination of both, it still boils down to defining, because the industry can help in reshaping the curriculum of their the institutions or the programs that are based on their. If you're going to be a banker or the accountants, we're producing accountants every year that probably do not even know how to balance a book. So do we get with the bankers, the banking industry, and say, what exactly are the skills and knowledge that you want our students to know? Yes, as a professional, we believe that instructors who are trained, who have their degree, PhD, masters in an area, they have the fundamental knowledge of that industry, but they do not have up-to-date knowledge if they don't associate with the industry. So all these people have to come to the same table and say, okay, here is what we want students who graduate from your program to be able to do. Here's what we are going to do in helping to train or educate such a, so if we want them to be bank ready, to be able to work, workplace ready, then we should be ready to fund, to help, to assist with the funding of their education. So we need to have that conversation so that we can jointly design a template that will work for everyone. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Ma. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll be bringing the session to an end here. I believe that was so. Right now, some of the key takeaways that we have is there needs to be an advocacy. We need to find a way to convert some of all these things that we have said into actionable steps, and we need to find a way of implementing. So it doesn't end here to say, yes, we've identified the problem, the challenges, we have seen the solution, but we need to be able to move forward to say, this is how we are doing it. And one of the ways that we've identified is having this public-private partnership. Let there be a platform where we can bring people from the private sector and people from the public sector, and then create policies such that we can move forward and everyone can pick from there and move forward. So from this, we'd like to say a big thank you to the members of our panelists and as well as our participants for today. Thank you for taking the time to join us. Thank you for bringing the best of your expertise to the table and for giving us a direction and a way forward. So, but we're not stopping here. So probably our next webinar will be with policymakers in Nigeria in the education sector. And as we bring them here to ask them the question to say, yes, we have seen the problem that we are facing. What can you do? How do we move forward? And so from this here out, I want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you, Bumi, T-Mark, Deji, Professor Worua, and Professor Woshika. Thank you very much for taking the time out to be here. And we look forward to probably having more webinars with you. And also, once the advocacy starts, we look forward to your energy and your drive to making sure that we move the education sector forward. And it's not just, we are part of that solution and we can create a solution that works and scales for everybody. So we come your way again, I'll say thank you for today. And please, can our panelists unmute themselves and just say goodbye, please.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming.
You.
Have a good weekend.
So,
safe.
Everybody.
And have a lovely weekend. So bye-bye.
Thank you, bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed myself.
Thank you very much for having me. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. All right. On this note,
Bye.
thank you for